All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody, to the May 3rd Compliance Weekly. I will be sharing my screen momentarily, and we can begin our boardwalk. All right. So getting started with the priority ones, we've got allow all protected branches. This one, I don't believe we're, I think this is part of the issues you created, Jan. Is that correctly? Does this need assigning? I think we're fully tapped out as far as
That's the one
no.
that
Sorry.
I split out into back
Oh,
and front end.
okay. All right. Then I think we're okay because we don't have anyone to take this on quite yet. So we can just move forward with the rest of the priority ones. HarSmart has got replacing approved with past and API responses, which is in review. And then Max, you've got the next two.
Yes, these are my two sort of big things. This milestone, they're both in review or awaiting my response to those reviews, but they're well on track to make 15.0.
Nice. I've got the status check add status field feature flag, which is another feature flag to try to roll out this week. I just want to double check that it's not conflicting with one of the other breaking changes that's going on. I know there was some concern from Hutsefa there. So I haven't double checked on that. And hey, Sasha, welcome to the party. Cool. So yeah, I'll be rolling this one out, and hopefully I'll roll it out a little slower than the previous one as well. So after we do GitLab working com, we'll be using a percentage-based actor there. So hopefully nothing too crazy goes on there. All right. Yeah, and you've got filter compliance violations by all protected branches.
Yeah, so I have a working local version of this. I'll create an MR, so hopefully this will be in review by tomorrow, and then a backend reviewer can tell me how terrible my code is, even because I'm pretty sure it is, even though it works. I'm sure there's a lot of room for optimization.
Got it. Well, sounds good. And then Rob, you've got the next two.
These are in a good place. Got a random failure on the pipeline for the banner, which I need to look into. But they're all waiting on the takers and feature to send me notification delete inactive projects work, which is the ticket after mine, which sounds like it's going well. But whether I get these into the milestone is going to be dependent on when that gets matched.
All right. So I think I understood most. No, you're not, Sasha. Rob's having sound issues. So you're not the only one. So it sounds like it's heavily dependent on the safest work getting merged in. Which seems to be in a good state. So we'll keep an eye on that. Which is the next issue, which is still currently in dev, but Hutsefa is out on holiday. So we'll get back to that. All right. Then for the final P1, that leaves us with integrate compliance violations branch filter, which is blocked by Jan, I believe, the work you're working on already. So I don't know if there's anything here to report on.
Yeah, that's correct. At least the front end that was blocking it is validated and done. So it's just the back end left.
Awesome. Cool. And then so as far as priority two, Max, you got one for adding changes to group level push rules to audit events.
Yep. So I made a start on this, and then Hasmar quite rightly pointed out I had missed out something fairly obvious in the way that we can implement it. So I've made those changes. When I finish my P1 work today, I'm going to validate those and get them back into review.
Awesome. Then we're looking like pretty good shape as far as priority ones and priority twos are concerned. I guess the only thing, that I definitely plan to follow up on once Hutsefa returns is to see if there's any help we can do here as far as the inactive project deletion stuff, since there's 3 issues in P1 that are going to resting on that. So as far as the lower priorities, is there anything anyone would like to bring up as far as P3, P4? All right, then we will move on to refinement. Not sure if we have a whole lot assigned here. One for Jan. Not sure if there's any movement here is for the drop-down selection.
Not yet. I started looking at that again today, but I still need to continue with the implementation plan. So
No
nothing
problem.
to report yet.
Sounds good. The other one's assigned to Harsamar. This one's related to the this one's the bug related to streaming Git operations, which hasn't been estimated yet. So I don't know, perhaps we might be able to pick this up later. This will be good for some customers to get used that are actually interested in Git fetch operations. So yeah. All right. It's not the final weekly of the milestone, so I don't think we need to cover release post blockers yet. So Sam, I think it's probably.
I think we still have closed issues.
Oh, you're right.
Still, yeah.
Yeah, I missed the bookmark from last time, so I'm not sure how far we got last week.
I don't think I covered any last week.
All right, then. It's gonna be a fun time. Let's see what our last. Well, I guess do we have a bookmark at all because of the new milestone? Probably not. So we just start from the beginning. Oh, 31 issues. That's the next upward. There we go. All right. GitSafe has got the first one with moved required pipeline configuration to ultimate. This one's an up-tiering one that we actually simplified. So it's great we got that. Customer unable to configure audit event streaming on GitLab.com. Max, not sure if you want to speak to this one yet.
I won't go into detail because it's confidential, but it was an interesting bug for a subset of Ultimate customers that we've now resolved.
Awesome. Got a bug fix for the compliance with product filter, which overflows on long names.
Yeah, so the project filter used by us and also some analytics dashboards overflowed and didn't fit to containers for projects with very long names. So that was caught by Elena during a review. And yeah, it was just a small fix. So it's now working better right across the board. And the next one's also related to that.
Awesome. Cool. And then Harshmar's got the next 5. So feature flag. Sorry. Okay, I'll go in order. Audit events. So this one's from 1410. It's a 2-part change in terms of auditing merge request setting changes. So those look like they've all made it over. Got some breaking changes as well in terms of removing the default status for API requests now that we're failing that. And we have a new application setting as far as what the front end needed in terms of cleaning up that UI, improving the UX around settings around delayed group deletion. And then the feature flag, I'm not quite sure which ones clean up the repository. Oh, yes. We were adding repository push audit events to our normal audit event log, and that was causing performance issues and site degradation, things like that. And so we've actually just removed that entirely. I believe we might have an issue to eventually add that to streaming audit events. I believe these two are related. So then that leaves us with creating a branch filter component for compliance violations.
Yeah, so that's related to my P1 work for filtering compliance violations by protected branches. That's the front end. Already done. All that's left is to integrate that with the back end.
Very cool. All right, then that covers our closed issues. So if I haven't missed anything else, I think we're ready for a priority review with Sam.
All right. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Links are in our agenda doc. So maybe a little bit of context on some of the higher level priorities we're thinking about. And Dennis is going to talk about this a little bit more in the agenda with OKRs, but really one of our key focus areas for the next several releases is going to be around streaming audit events. We've gotten really good positive feedback from all the customers I've talked to with our initial iterations, and there's lots of edges and opportunities for us to add new features, new enhancements to really get it to something to the point where it's something that they rely on as a critical piece of running their organization. A couple of the bugs that were on the board that we talked about there, people are very interested in seeing resolved so they can adopt it. Things like Git fetch events. And what you're going to see is 15.1 will have a number of items in it. Let me find the share button, but that should really reflect that sort of streaming audit events being a critical area of focus for us. We are a couple of weeks away from having this finalized, so this is still in draft. As always, open to feedback if you see something that shouldn't be here or something that's not here that should. But one of the key sort of feature things, if we can get it through refinement, weight looks good, that I'd like us to focus on is starting to work on the filtering for streaming audit events. One of the pain points a couple different customers have talked to me about is, I get all of this data, but that's a lot of data for me to process, and it puts a large load on my servers. I would rather just only receive the event types I care about. If you're interested in a little bit more detail about this, I wrote up the customer report in the PM stand-up channel, and that has customer names as well as specific data points that might be interesting there. As always as well, we're going to focus on if we have any removals, deprecations, breaking changes that are critical, security issues, any bugs that come up, as well as any carryover from the 15.0 release before we move into that sort of feature work. There's also a collection of other new audit events we potentially would focus on during the release, as well as some smaller features around the chain of custody report and some of the steps needed to expand the functionality of that. And so that's sort of the preview of what 15.1 and future releases will have as part of it. I'm going to go ahead and update the handbook page with our tactical priority issue as we get a little further along in this milestone. We know what's going to be finished, what needs to be moved around on there. Any questions on that?
Yeah, just raising the chat, but I'll vocalize it. Because 15.1 is not a major change, we won't be doing any removals, but there may be deprecations if they're top priority.
Yep, good point. So I have the next one as well. So I wanted to give you all an update on our partnership with Pipedream. They were formerly known as RequestBin. We've been working with them the past couple of weeks to actually build an integration into their product for streaming audit events. One of the pain points customers have talked about is, the audit events are great, but the customer, have to build this sort of glue layer that connects to all these other tools that I care about. Pipedream is actually really good because they package all of that glue layer for customers automatically. And so our new integration with them allows people to, actually I can just share my screen and show you. So I'm in Pipedream right now. The integration will allow people to just add a new GitLab source, and they can select that they want to start receiving streaming audit events. This integrates directly with their GitLab accounts. You can see all the groups that you've got access to. And then this is going to automatically configure the streaming audit events for that group that I selected here and start sending events directly to it. So I'm really optimistic this is going to help a lot more people get onboarded more quickly with streaming audit events and start to take advantage of it. So wanted to give you all that update. And certainly if you use Pipedream, feel free to try it out, see if there's any room for improvements or if there are any bugs in it.
That's very cool. So they built that integration, well, it integrates via OAuth and then with the streaming event API as well?
Correct. So they
Very
previously had a GitLab integration that they built at some point before they were an official technology partner. I have been working with them the past couple of weeks to add the GraphQL queries for the new streaming audit events specifically, but all of that OAuth and the other infrastructure was already there.
That's very cool.
So our sort of next steps on this, I'm going to start plugging it in customer conversations, but we'll also likely try and put either a blog post together with more about it or a video demo or some sort of exciting go-to-market collaboration with these folks, which should hopefully drive more adoption of our features as a result. And Dennis, you've got the next one.
All righty. Very exciting stuff. We're gonna expand on that and the major kind of and the shared OKR that Sam and I have been working on in preparation for this next quarter. So Speaking, yeah, on that topic, it is officially fiscal year 23 quarter 2. And so with that, we have a new batch of OKRs, which are mostly finalized, actually. There's only a couple that are requiring a little bit more information. But going off of what Sam had mentioned in terms of trying to be able to get more or drive more adoption for streaming audit events, we have a goal here to see if we can onboard 10 customers. That involves a variety of things. End-to-end demo, as Sam was already just giving us a quick demo of how can we expand on that to potentially illustrate a good example in terms of, perhaps some permission level changes or a merge request setting changes, and that gets piped over into Pipedream, but then we can trigger some workflow to automatically create an issue and give a kind of full end-to-end example of why streaming audit events can be important for enterprise workflows. In addition to that, we've got an Epic in terms of integrating with third-party storage systems, because right now with the current HTTP endpoint, a lot of customers have been requesting really more specific integrations, but the kind of step towards that and specific integrations, meaning with specific products like Microsoft Sentinel. But I think we think integration with third-party storage systems, putting this in a S3 bucket or things like that, is kind of an intermediary step and an alternative option from HTTP endpoints. So it'll be interesting to see how customers respond to that. Additionally, and there's another, this is also tied to another OKR down further below, but we want to add 3 new streaming audit events and also see if we can solicit 3 contributions from outside the group to help drive kind of usage of streaming audit events or audit events in general. And then, as Sam mentioned already in the 15.1 planning, introducing some form of filtering to help simplify the amount of data or reduce the amount of data that customers are getting, since it's a literal fire hose at this point in time. Any questions on streaming audit events? I know this one is going to be the biggest one. Yeah.
With soliciting contributions, is that from outside our team or from outside the company?
I've left it broad because I think from community and outside the team within GitLab are both applicable, and I can speak to that in a bit with point. Well, I can jump to it real quickly as to why. So for number 5 here, so document shift of responsibility of audit event implementation to the groups. This one's as far as context goes, about probably a year, maybe even longer now. We were talking about how we needed to refactor audit events and how we were kind of making improvements to audit events from an implementation standpoint. But as we saw and as you've seen as maintainers or reviewers, we often get merge requests that add audit events to features that we don't actually own, and we're kind of the first ones to field those reviews. And sometimes we don't actually even include the group because it's just, from the code diff perspective, it's just an audit event implementation. But sometimes we do miss edge cases because we're not as familiar with the group. But also, I think we've made enough improvements, and the data tables have been partitioned, and we have good sufficient documentation as far as how normal audit events as well as streaming audit events are implemented, that I think we can safely make the recommendation for groups that they are responsible for at least kind of doing that initial review. And if they have questions around how audit events are implemented, then we can help support that. And so really what has to happen there is a documentation, a bit more of like announcement that, groups are going to be more responsible for audit event implementations. And we're just the domain experts to provide support there. That gets into a couple of different other things in terms of like product, like category maturity scoring that we want to try to change. And I don't want to speak for Sam here, but he's leading the conversation there in terms of, what can we kind of refine the definition of done, especially when groups want to move their feature from to complete in terms of the maturity scoring. And part of that would possibly require making sure that they have all the audit events they need there. So all of this is to help support a general shift that compliance is here to support the implementation of audit events, but not be responsible for all audit events across the entire product, because that was never the original goal for us to really implement. So I don't know if that helps bring a little bit more context as to why I left this a little bit broader in terms of community contributions, Max. All right. Cool. Couple other OKRs, dogfooding value stream analytics. So for those that aren't familiar, you can kind of measure the different times to do various parts of the workflow with our issues and merge requests. And so one thing that the managed stage wants to do is to try to dog food value stream analytics to see how if there's value we can get out of it for the compliance group. You can define custom stages. So if we have different workflow states that we want to track to start as far as start and stop endpoints, we can. I'll include a link in terms of what value stream analytics looks like, so it makes a little bit more sense. But basically, we want to try to use it to see if there's value we can get out of it as a group. Additionally, there is a workflow monitoring initiative that's happening across the dev subdepartment. And what that means is basically, can we measure a workflow within our group, whether that's setting up an audit event streaming destination or adding a compliance framework to a project, and basically start having that set up to monitor using site speed and basically going through and monitoring a workflow in production to see how long it takes, just to basically start driving more attention into how long our workflows can take in general. So this is very loose right now in terms of what we actually want to measure, and I'm open to ideas. Could be around streaming audit events as well, to just kind of keep it thematic. Basically, this workflow is from create in terms of going to a repository, navigating through a couple folders, opening a file, and then going back to the repository page, and then just analyzing what's taking the longest in terms of load times. Obviously, this is using site speed, so you have waterfall graphs in terms of just the entire workflow or the entire process and what's taking the most amount of time, resources, things like that. There's even a video for it as well, film strip. And so obviously there's all the typical site speed goodness. And so basically we want to try to see how we can implement something for that to just monitor to start one workflow in the compliance space. Maybe compliance report would be a good one there. There's a lot here, so please interrupt me if there's any questions. So this one is definitely one I'm still waiting on some more data from, specifically from ecosystems. In terms of migrating more pajamas components, we did really well last quarter. I think we had in terms of pajamas issues, we migrated definitely over 10. And then system usability score issues, we had an original goal of 4, and I think we ended up shipping 16 of those. So we did really well last quarter. So basically, we just want to continue migrating pajamas components over. As soon as I have more information there, I'll fill that one out. I've already walked over the shift of responsibility for audit event implementations. This one's just, mid-year performance review cycles are coming up. This one's a less formal one, but still an important milestone in terms of having performance and career development conversations. So I'll be looking to complete those. And then I've been talking about this already, and you may have been pinged on some merge requests. Sam and I just want to take a look at our group page and make sure that everything's up to date there. And then I have one around just increasing psychological safety around feature flags and production changes across not just the group, but the entire engineering organization in terms of just documenting the process involved. I had some really good conversations with people during incident review in terms of how to make sure people are aware of what things to look at when feature flags are being rolled out, and making sure our documentation's up to date there, and seeing what improvements we can make around that. Just generally making people feel, because I know we've all posted messages in Slack saying, "Oh, well, I'm about to flip on a flag, so the sweating has begun." So just wanted to try to drive more awareness around that it's okay to flip these things as long as we're prepared to monitor them. And then to wrap things up, thanks for listening for me ramble for this long, but building up the team. There's still one backend engineering rec that I'm hiring for. And then at the same time, strengthening our reviewers across engineering org, and trying to drive some more database reviewers, since that is an area in need of more reviewers, and especially maintainers. So we're going to have 2 backend engineers try to work towards becoming database reviewers. That was a lot. There's a link, so if you want to look through them, the descriptions are a little bare right now, but I will be working on adding more detail to them, more context about why they're important. But if there's no other questions, then we can end the call. All right. Then, good seeing everyone, and have a good day and rest of your week.
Thanks, folks. Bye.